So we talked about boundaries, and I came across this post, and it looks like it's some lady. Her name is Nual Mustafa. So she posted this thing, 6 types of boundaries everyone can benefit from. And it looks like she's a clinical neuropsychology resident. So she studies neuroscience, whatever. So I was reading through it, and I was very surprised to see how many were not correct, and everything was put emphasis on the other person. So for people who want to go back and listen to that episode to get context for this, do that. But I guess we'll just jump in. So I'm just going to read each slide, and then we can go over the examples and ways that you would turn it around, like the exact phrase, or just get your opinion on. Okay. So emotional boundaries. So not taking on other people's emotional burden when you don't have the capacity, not engaging in triggering topics, separating yourself from your feelings. And an example phrase 1 is, "This is not a topic I want to discuss right now." What do you say about that? Like, is that the right way to say that to someone else?
I think that's one of the most common approaches people have to setting boundaries that doesn't work. All you have to do is put yourself in the other person's shoes. You're having a conversation and the person opposite you says, "This is a topic I'm uncomfortable with." What are you feeling right now as the recipient?
Defense. Yeah.
Yep. You're starting a war. That's not good boundaries. That's my indication. I just flip it and say, how would I feel receiving a statement like that? Why do I feel defensive? Because someone is telling me that what I'm doing is somehow wrong and somehow bad, and I'm hurting them with my topic. And naturally, that makes me feel that I'm the one being invaded. So I take a statement like that as a violation of my boundary, because now someone is in my zone telling me what I can and cannot say. That is going to make me want to put up a wall. I'm going to be like, I'm going to feel defensive, but I'm also going to feel like you're probably condescending. I'm going to feel that you're high and mighty, you're oversensitive, I'm going to have all of these ideas about you that may or may not be true. That's going to make me distrust you. It's going to break connection. It's going to do everything opposite of what a healthy, good boundary is meant to do. A good boundary is meant to provide safe connection with another person. So for me, that statement is dead wrong.
How would you reword something like that? Like if you weren't in the right space to talk about something, is there a way you could say that would not cross your boundaries?
Well, you just said it.
What?
I'm not in a space to talk about this. You're taking responsibility for your reaction. And you can even take that further if you have a close connection with this person. You can just say something like, "I noticed as soon as you started talking about this subject that it was bringing up all of these bad memories for me, or my heart started racing and I realized that I'm having a really bad reaction. I obviously have some issues that I need to work through. Thank you for understanding."
Yeah, because you're not blocking, you're not putting, it's almost like when the person says, "I don't want to talk about this," they're initiating that war and that wall.
Yeah.
So it's like, how is the other person supposed to?
They're not even putting up a wall. To say, "I don't want to talk about this," or "I don't," you're talking about something that's upsetting me. You are actually outside of your boundary trying to control somebody else's behavior. So you're not even putting up a wall. You're out there saying, you need to do this and you need to do this. And how are you going to enforce someone to do that? How are you going to make that person not talk about something that they maybe want to talk about? You can't. Your next alternative is to storm out. Those are your options. Make a demand on another person They don't accommodate you, and you leave.
So it's basically being someone no one wants to be around.
Exactly.
Okay, moving on. So I'll just read a few if there's a little bit overlapping. So the next one is I want to support you, but I have too much on my plate right now. And the next one is I need some time alone when I get upset.
I like the second one better, but I think you could even take a little bit more responsibility, which protects the other person, honors the other person in the relationship a little bit better. So the way that it's phrased isn't too bad. Like if you were to say that to someone that's still pretty decent, I would accept that. But I think if you could say something like, I find that I'm able to manage my emotions better, and they don't spill over, and I don't say things that I regret, and I don't impose my anger on you, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you have a trusting relationship, if you don't have much of a trusting relationship, then you can say something like that. I don't like the word need. I think that's the one that I get hung up on in this. It is a disempowering word. And I think words are powerful. And I think the way that we say things and the word choices matter in how we perceive ourselves. I need to be alone feels urgent. It feels like, again, you're asking them to leave you alone rather than owning it more fully. Even if you said, I'm going to be alone so that I can manage my upset, way more powerful than I need to be alone. I need to be alone still implies that you're asking passively or indirectly something of that other person. So you're implying, leave me alone.
Do you think all of these phrases lack the kindness?
I mean, that's not unkind to say that, but it still implies something for the other person to do. That's what I notice that I don't like. Read the first of those two again.
I want to support you, but I have too much on my plate right now.
Okay, again, that's, I don't like that it puts the but in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the but.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I read the last one?
Yes.
The last one is I don't have the emotional capacity to talk about this right now.
Again, I think it's not bad because you're at least taking responsibility for what your emotional capacity is. But it does leave the other person a little adrift. So again, flip it around. How would you feel if someone said, I don't have the emotional capacity to talk about this right now?
I guess it would make me feel, again, defensive and also like I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And possibly make you feel shut down.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Especially if they said that and maybe left the room. Or like, I'd feel dismissed a lot.
Yeah. So what it seems like, these three questions that you've read to me, the common thread that I notice is they cause disconnect. Even though they might sound innocuous and careful and even taking some personal responsibility, they don't keep the connection alive.
That's kind of like the thing that is kind of mainstream that people miss. I don't see a lot of this online or even that people talk about how boundaries are meant to connect. It's so counterintuitive because a boundary itself says like, I want to separate myself, right?
It implies a separation.
Yeah, but I think that the part that people might be missing is that it's meant to connect. Like when you set a boundary right, it connects you more to the person.
Yes.
Which is like crazy to think about. And I think about my own experiences in my relationships. I'm like, many times when I've had to have really hard conversations and try to set boundaries, they usually ended up with me feeling more connected to the person.
When they were effective?
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, we can move on to the relationship boundaries, which is the one I read earlier. Okay. Relationship boundaries. how people can treat us, how they can behave around us, and what they can expect from us. Some example phrases are, I am not okay with you discussing private matters with your friend. I can't read your mind. Please clearly let me know your expectations and needs. When I am done with my workday, I need 30 minutes to rest and recharge. Those are all 3 examples phrases.
Okay, let's back up to the first relationship statements. Read me the first one.
Just the statement?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that one says how people can treat us, how they can behave around us, and what they can expect from us.
Right. So for me, that sets the wrong premise. That's the problem. The explicit statements aren't so much of a problem as much as the premise is the problem. The premise is, I'm going to tell you this information to change your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. Your job is not to change somebody else's behavior. Period. And any attempt to do that is not a healthy boundary. You're outside of your boundaries in somebody else's space, trying to tell them what their circle of power should be. And here's what you can do, and here's what you can say, and here's what you can, how you can behave. And I just think that is a recipe for conflict and hurt, and again, disconnect in the relationship.
So what about some of those example phrases? Do those kind of coincide with what you're talking about?
So read me.
So, I am not okay with you discussing private matters with your friend.
Okay. Totally fine to say that, but it implies an expectation that that person will stop saying those things to their friends, and that is not your business.
And it's kind of setting yourself up to be disappointed.
Yes. So you can say that if you just want to let the person know how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I'm uncomfortable with you doing this, but again, you are a free agent and you can continue to do whatever you want, but I just want you to know that I'm really uncomfortable with it.
Yeah. Well, I had a specific interaction like this with my friend.
Okay, do tell.
I'm sure you'll remember because I talked to you about it a lot.
Okay.
So I mentioned something that was private that she told me, and she said, please don't tell anyone this. And then she told me it. And then I was casually talking about it to Dad. And me and Dad don't gossip, but we discuss things that are meaningful. And I brought it up very casually and not like
in a context.
Oh, yeah.
Of the conflict.
A lot of context. And then Dad mentioned something to her. Hey, I heard this and this. And I kind of like an extension of like, hey, that's hard. You know, like it was all so well meaning. And she freaked out on me. I told you not to say anything. And I'm like, I get it. Like, I understand where she was coming from, but boy, did I feel attacked. I felt so attacked. And it took us like 3 or 4 times of talking about it to resolve it. Because she kept having expectations of me, and I was really shut down, and I was trying to reject them because I'm like, don't have those expectations. Don't. She kept wanting me to say like, I won't do this again. It's what it felt like. She maybe not have intended that, but it felt like you like she was trying to control me.
Right.
And it just shut me down.
100%. Her saying, keep this a secret.
Yes.
Or don't tell anyone is her violating her boundary. If she doesn't want people to know, then she needs to not tell anybody.
That's why it kind of bothered me, because it's like, why are you telling me this?
Right.
If you shouldn't be telling anyone.
Right.
And that's true with anyone. Like,
absolutely.
Oh my gosh, this is a secret. Don't say anything. And it tells you. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, you're disrespecting the person's, information already. So why is it fair to assume that I should respect it if you're disrespecting it?
Right. Even if it's your own experience.
Yeah.
You're disrespecting your need for privacy by telling someone else.
Yeah.
And then requiring them to keep it private.
Yeah,
When
I
you
just
didn't even do it.
I don't even like doing that. Even with personal things I share, I never say, "Oh, this is a secret." Never. I'm like, it almost makes it more enticing to tell people when you know it's something private. Unless it's unless it's like, someone explicitly says like, "Hey, that's not something that should be repeated." Like, I get that. Like, there's been plenty of times where I've like, "Oh, understood." Like, I don't even want to tell. But it's like when they open with, "This is a secret," or it's so different when something can stay private. So if in this context, if my friend would have said like, "Oh, just so you know, after we talked about it, after she shared everything, just so you know, just if you don't mind keeping that to myself, because," and maybe take responsibility for the fact that she told me like, "I shouldn't have told you, but it's been bothering me, it's been gnawing at me. I wanted to talk about it, but is it okay if you just maybe not repeat it?" I would have totally responded differently. I'd have been like, "Absolutely." Because she's not having the expectations of me. And she started out by saying, "Don't tell anyone." And then we had this like hour and a half conversation. I'm like, how the hell was I supposed to remember that? And like, you're already blabbing to me about her business. So, and I brought it up with my dad in a very, contextual situation. So I'm like, it just did not, it really bothered me, that whole interaction. But it taught me how to maybe recognize when someone's outside their boundaries.
Right.
And it was really tough for her when we were talking. I was just like, don't tell me stuff then. Do not tell me something and expect me to keep it to myself. Like, just don't tell me. And she was like, "But I want to be like, you're one of my best friends. I want to tell you stuff." And I'm just like, not if it's not your business. Don't tell me stuff, because I will not be beholden to your expectations. And it was really tough. That was a really tough situation. But anyway, I just thought I would share that.
Yeah, I love that, because there's a difference between secrecy and privacy. And I think if you want to look at it as the light and shadow aspects of information,
Mm-hmm.
what we do with information, privacy is a positive, respectful consideration of the possible consequences of talking about something or exposing it. Secrecy is about hiding.
Yeah.
It is almost always about shame, trying to protect yourself from consequences. You're trying to get something out of it. Like, I know something that you don't know, don't tell anybody. It's forbidden. That feeling of doing something that you know you shouldn't, but you do it anyway. The high people get from breaking social taboos. That's what telling secrets and then requiring you to keep a secret. And then getting mad when you break that so-called agreement when they already broke it is hypocrisy. Secrecy allows you to behave badly without consequences. Privacy requires you to hold yourself accountable. And I think that's another separation.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay, we should move on. I'm just going to move on to the physical boundaries. So it opens up with saying, who is allowed in your personal space, who can touch you, how close someone can get to you, and what you choose to put in your body. So, like, eat or drink. Some example phrases: "Please don't touch me like that." "Could you please take a step back? You're too close." "I won't be drinking tonight, but thank you for offering." "If you need to go in my room, ask me first." I don't want you commenting on my appearance."
So I agree with the first set of boundaries. I agree with you asking yourself, who's allowed in my home?
Mm-hmm.
Who's allowed in my space? How close can you get to me? Who can touch me? Those are private questions that you need to answer for yourself that never need be expressed. It's just for you to know.
Mm-hmm.
The examples I find to be erroneous, problematic. Again, creating walls and barriers and disconnection instead of exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
So read me one and we'll see if we can turn it around.
Could you please take a step back? You are too close.
Okay, that I don't think is an appropriate thing. Again, you're
So what?
being a
So
person.
like what I would do is I would step back without saying anything.
Yep.
And even if they kept coming close, I would step back because like they would hopefully pick up the hint. If they're seeing me move away from them, like, and even if you have to look so dumb, but just keep getting back, getting back, getting back, and if they're still persisting, then maybe I would say something.
Well, I had an experience once with someone who loved to come right up close to me and kind of whisper.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that. Okay, anyway.
And I was really uncomfortable with it. And we were standing in my kitchen talking, and I was cooking at the stove, and she was sort of just hovering over me and kind of whispering. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable with how close this person is. So I turned off the burner and I went around the counter. There was a bar right there. And I stood there and put the bar between me and her. And so she came over directly to the bar. There's like 3.5 feet between us, which was appropriate. And we both sat there across the bar from each other and finished our conversation.
Yeah, that's a good example of how to like put something between you and the
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. And I think that we were able to have a good connection because it's not like I didn't love her and I didn't want us to be having a conversation. But I knew if I said, hey, could you take a step back? I just killed the connection. I just destroyed the intimacy. I just threw an arrow in the heart of our relationship. I just think it is just bad practice.
Yeah.
And then the other person is like, fine, I'll leave,
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't say that, that's what they're feeling. They're hurt. It's like, you don't need to do that to take care of yourself. And it also just makes you look like an ass.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I agree. What about another one? So, what about I don't want you commenting on my appearance? I mean, the fact that I don't want you if you need to go in my room, like, or yeah, I don't know. Even when they say like you, it automatically puts them like you're trying to control the other person.
Right, right. So for me, if I don't want someone to go in my room without asking me, I would just lock the door.
Like carry around a key,
Like,
and like lock the door when you
I
leave.
just lock the door. I
Yeah.
mean, that's my responsibility to protect my space. If I don't want people in there, I lock the door. Then they go up to the door, it's locked. They're like, hey, I need to go ask her if I can get into her room because I need something. It requires that person to reach out and ask you, hey, can I unlock your door?
Yeah.
So the more you can do things where you don't have to say what you want, but you're just using action to take care of yourself, that's far better.
And it, like you said before, it doesn't, oh no, crap, I lost my train of thought. Oh, like you're setting the boundary without them knowing.
Right.
That's like the best way, like the bar example.
Yep.
Like you didn't lose a connection with her, but you just put the boundary without her even skipping a beat.
Right. And we were able to continue our whole conversation, give each other a hug, say goodbye when we were done. She did not have hurt feelings. I wasn't angry at her because I didn't allow her to hover over me for 20 minutes before I took action. And there was no need for me to say anything at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, what about the I don't want you commenting on my parents thing? How would you
That's
retrace?
trickier.
Yeah.
That's trickier because somebody may say something like, wow, have you lost weight? Which is a personal thing. I do not like people commenting on my weight.
Mm-hmm.
So I completely understand that. And for me, I think with a situation like that, maintaining the connection would be giving them the kind of response that respects my unwillingness or my lack of desire to discuss my body with them. So I may say something, and I've actually used this before. Someone came up to me the other day and said, oh my gosh, you're looking so good. Are you losing weight? And I said, I have absolutely no idea. Conversation ender.
Yeah.
Without disconnecting from that person because she started laughing.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see that we didn't lose a connection over it, but I was just letting her know that is not something I'm even interested in. I couldn't even tell you. And it actually was true because I hadn't got on the scale for about 10 days. So I really just didn't know.
So it's not like you were being dishonest.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I will use phrases like that in a conversation so that I'm communicating that I don't really care about this. This is not a direction I want to go. She's not saying, let's talk about your body right now. People just want to connect. That's all that people are interested in. They say things like, hey, have you lost weight? Because maybe they're trying to lose weight. And maybe they think this is an opportunity for me to connect with a shared interest or shared topic.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that, especially women.
Yeah.
Like it's supposed to come off as a compliment and a way to connect,
Right.
but it's, I mean,
And so if you say, please don't comment on my body,
I turn and walk away.
same.
Yeah.
It's a huge turn off. It's a huge disconnect. And you walk away feeling all high and mighty like, I'm just setting my good boundaries. Look how I am taking care of myself. And I just call bull on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Communication boundaries. How someone is allowed to speak to you, what somebody can or cannot say to you, how you speak to yourself, how you speak with others is kind of the. Can we go over that first?
Go over the first one. Read it to me.
Okay. The same thing?
Yeah, the first one.
How someone is allowed to speak to you.
Okay, right there. I would reverse that to say, how am I going to speak to others? Period. How other people speak to you, how other people speak to me is none of my business.
Yeah.
Again, if you have waited until someone is screaming at you, you broke your own boundaries miles back.
Mm-hmm.
If it's gotten to that point, you do not need to decide, I'm not going to allow someone to yell at me. I'm not going to allow someone to swear at me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have control over them, but you do have control over how you're going to interact. And if you preemptively create an environment where those things are not going to occur naturally, you're going to avoid 99% of the need to even walk away.
Yeah. What about what someone can or cannot say to you? Is that kind of the same thing?
It's exactly what can I say? What am I willing to say to someone else? What am I not willing to say? What's a violation of my boundaries? And your boundaries are based on your values. Okay, so for example, I was talking to someone the other night and he kept using the F word.
Mm-hmm.
And then he apologized. Like, oh, sorry, I'm cursing. And I told him, hey, it does not bother me in the slightest. In fact, I think it's kind of funny. And so for me to let him know, I don't find that offensive. But if someone does find it offensive, then how do I respond to that? And if I did find it offensive and he said that, I would say, oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Because you maintain the connection.
I maintain the connection, but I'm preserving my values. But I'm not going to impose that. If someone is swearing and that irritates me or I find it vulgar, I will weigh the connection against my tolerance for that vulgarity. So I may say, okay, this person is bearing their soul right now. And okay, they're cursing. Now, I have a really good connection with them. I'm privileged for them to be sharing the deep parts of their experience with me. Is it worth me disrupting that so that I don't have to experience a little bit of this vulgarity? And when you weigh that in the balance, I would say if you're a normal human being, you're going to value the connection with that person over the vulgarity.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to hear some example phrases?
Yes.
That they put? Please stop telling me I'm overreacting. It doesn't help me or doesn't help and feels dismissive.
Mm.
I will not respond when you are being disrespectful. I am not ready to talk about this personal matter. I'd like to keep it private. Please don't speak to me in that tone.
Every one of those, you just put yourself in the recipient's shoes and you tell me, and I'm asking this to anybody who's listening, that you would receive any of those statements with anything but a feeling of defensiveness, disconnect, hurt, shame, guilt. It causes nothing good. Nothing good comes from that, except you, the person saying it, feeling high and mighty. And ultimately, it isolates you.
Yeah. Like what you were talking about in the previous episode about being alone in the tower.
Yes.
It's so true. It does not inspire any connection with others. Well, I guess we can probably go we have mental boundaries. So this one is allowing yourself to have personal thoughts, beliefs, and opinions that differ from others, being okay with others not agreeing with you. Do you want to go over that?
Yeah, just quickly.
Okay. Example phrases. It's okay if you don't agree with me. You cannot convince me that your opinion is the correct one, just as I cannot convince you of the same. It is okay if we disagree, but I need you to speak to me with respect.
Okay. Like, I agree with the theory. I agree with, like, it's okay for me to have different beliefs. It's okay. These are personal acknowledgments. These are things that I say to myself when I feel maybe overwhelmed by an aggressive personality who's pushing their agenda and their opinion on me. That's not the statements that they're offering, I just think are hugely problematic for all the same reasons that we've covered.
Yeah.
It's all about trying to get the other person to change their behavior.
Oh, excuse me. I think the only one that I kind of agree with is just, it's okay if you don't agree with me.
Right, but it's followed up with,
oh, the other ones, you cannot convince me that your opinion is the correct one, which is like just a terrible way to go about it.
Absolutely.
Because you're setting yourself up not to even want to understand their side.
Right.
Which is just, you're not going to get anywhere by having that.
And I think that is a problem with the typical boundary setting idea, that it is a self-centered mindset. And boundaries, you only create boundaries so that you can interact with others and have connection with others without compromising your empowerment and your sense of safety and security. That's what they're for. It allows you to have relationship, not damages relationship in exchange for your security.
Yeah, totally. So the last one is time boundaries. How much time you choose to spend with others, how others should respect your time, lateness, asking for favors, etc. How much time you spend on a certain task. Some example phrases are, I'll call you, but I can only talk for 15 minutes. Is that kind of what you talked about?
Yeah, so I totally agree with that.
Okay. Please let me know in advance if you're going to be late. It was great to catch up, but I have to leave now. It's an early day for me tomorrow. Thank you for the invite, but I can't make it. I hope that we can connect another time.
I would say all of those are great.
Okay.
All of those are great because they have to do with you.
Yeah, every single one.
And if I was on the receiving end of those, I would feel appreciative.
Yeah. Why do you think that one, out of all of the ones, was the only... Oh, is it just because of the focus is on yourself?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And I think time is a pretty abstract idea, and you're not telling other people. You're saying like, hey, let me know if you're going to be late. But what if that person doesn't let you know? And they're late. Now how do you respond? That's where people get hung up. They think if I say, hey, let me know if you're going to be late, that guarantees the recipient will text you and let you know if they're going to be late. Usually, if the person isn't the type to text you when they're going to be late, and then you ask them to do it, they're still not going to do it.
So how would you handle a situation like that?
Well, I would recognize that I'm telling them what I need. I'm not telling them what they should do. So it's only good for them to have the opportunity to change their behavior should they desire to do so. And once I've stated it, then I don't have to wonder if maybe that person just doesn't know. Maybe no one's ever said to them, hey, you could just text me and let me know if you're going to be late. Maybe it's just an ignorance thing. But once I've communicated that and the person continues to be late, that's on me now to figure out how I'm going to navigate that. It has nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
And I deal with this quite a bit. I have a couple of interactions with friends who are notoriously late. And to me, that's simple. I just know that person's going to be late so that I build my life around that. If I want to hang out with them at 6:30, I will invite them to come at 6. And they'll probably show up at 6:30. And problem solved.
Yeah, I think some people might have have a problem with that and say something like, again, this is kind of stuff I've heard in the past of like, well, why is it my responsibility? Right?
Because it is your responsibility.
Yeah, because I've heard that of like, why is it my job to make sure that well, I guess in a way it's not, because you're
dealing with reality.
yeah.
You're accepting reality, which puts you in a position of power.
Yeah.
As soon as you step out of reality and say, this is what this person should do, you're not in reality anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a fantasy world where people are supposed to align their lives with your values. Some people don't value being on time. That is 100% okay. There's probably some great qualities that person brings because they don't value time.
Mm-hmm.
And you look for those things. It's like, what is it about this person? I have one friend who's never on time, ever. We laugh about it. It's an ongoing inside joke. But what he brings is his whole self, his whole present self to every interaction that I have with him, because he's not feeling constrained by time. If I ran into him and he was supposed to be somewhere else and we started talking for 15 minutes, he wouldn't be checking his watch. He wouldn't be like acting all antsy, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late. That 15 minutes would be wholly devoted to our connection. And I started to see how valuable that is. And yeah, he has to deal with the consequences of his lateness in whatever way that happens for him. But if I say, hey, we're going to meet at 2:00 in the afternoon, I know that he's not going to probably show up till 2:20 or 2:30. Great. I have a 20-30-minute time slot to get something done that I have not been able to get to. So I build that into my interactions with him so that I always have, I'm getting more done. It's almost like our relationship supports me getting extra stuff done on my to-do list.
Yeah.
And I love it. And he comes with such energy and enthusiasm and lightness. I love his lightness.
Yeah. I have a quick thing that I kind of do to help me manage my boundaries with time is that because I have a friend who's sometimes late, but she's always so good at telling me when she's late. And sometimes things can run late, especially because I see her a lot on the weekdays where I work in the morning. And so I tell her, like, here's my time I can hang out with you from like 4 to 8 p.m. because I need to go home and get my sleep for the next day. And so even if she's late, even 5 or even 6, I know that like I'm going home at 8, right? No matter what. So she can be late and cut our time short, but I'm going to enjoy that 2-3 hours I have with her no matter what. And then I can decide, like, if I'm having a good time and want to push my bedtime a little bit, I will. But ultimately, I'm going to honor when I want to go home and just say, well, this is really fun. Give her a hug, go home early. Like, go home at the right time I want to go home. But a lot of the times I have so much fun with her, I always stay out late. But like that.
Then you don't blame her.
Never.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That you don't blame her. You said, I made the choice to not go home at 9:00.
Yep.
or 8 o'clock.
And I never resent her for like, well, if she hadn't shown up so late, then I wouldn't stay out late. That's not taking responsibility at all.
Yeah, agreed.
So that's a way I handle my time when with dealing with late people.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, this was fun. What did you think about that post?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I was going to say it surprises me that these kinds of messages around boundaries are being perpetuated. But honestly, it doesn't surprise me. It's the status quo. It's what I hear from people all the time. They'll tell me, I have such great boundaries on the one hand, and in the next 5 minutes, they'll tell me the breakdown of all their relationships and how awful they are. And I'm like, and you have good boundaries? Like, tell me about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I need to understand how you feel these two things are working for you.
Yeah.
But I do think most people think that setting good boundaries means not being connected. And it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
And if I want to be connected to people, then I have to be loose with my boundaries. But if I want to be a stick in the mud and, be difficult and be hard to be around and be alone, then I can have good boundaries and I'll be safe.
That's so sad.
It is.
I hope that by even just talking about this and putting it out on the internet, like people can hear this and think that there's another way. Like there's an option 3.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a trade-off.
Exactly. You can have safety. You can have power in your own self and in your own needs. You can meet those needs, and you can have meaningful connection. And I would dare say better connection, deeper connection, more vulnerability, more honesty. You can have all of those things and show up as your best self. That's the power of good boundaries.